Welcome to our second presentation covering Bluebooking. This is the first screen that you'll see when you pull up the PowerPoint. And so let's go forward. We got through, I believe, slide 13, so we're going to start on 14. Yes, here we go. So we're going to do slides 14 and 15 now. Before we get started, though, on this, I'm going to go to a word sheet and just do a little refresher. We have 4 fields that we're focusing on in Bluebooking. The first field is the what field. That gives us the name of the case. And typically it's going to be in the format of, for example, Martinez versus Harrison. And there's going to be a comma telling us we're done with that field, we're done with the what field. Then we're going to go to the where field. And that's going to be the physical location in a printed book. Here I've included a pinpoint cite. You won't always have this. This is the first page of the opinion, and this is the particular part of the opinion we're drawing the reader's attention to. What separates the where field from the who field is the opening of the parentheses. So we know when we see the parentheses, we're done with where, we're moving on to the who field. And when we say who, we mean which court. Who decided this particular case. And we don't mean the name of the judge who wrote the opinion. We mean the actual court. In this case, we can see it's a Texas court. We use the form TEX period only to refer to the Texas Supreme Court. That's it. Whenever you see the abbreviation for a state and there isn't anything else, it means the highest court in that state. You might think to yourself, well, Texas has 2 highest courts. We have the Texas Supreme Court and we have the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. You're right, they are co-equal. They're both at the same level. But for the purposes of Bluebooking, the Texas Supreme Court is the one that gets to use the TEX period format. The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals uses a different format. There is no particular thing that separates the who from the when. The when is just going to be the year. If the opinion has happened in the in the current year, then many times people will put a date. But that's very rare that you're going to be citing that. So almost always you're going to use the year, and you're going to use the 4-digit version of the year to indicate the year. And then you're going to close with parentheses. Now this citation is very easy to do because we have a very simple court set up. But I wanted to show you how that might be. So let's put all these pieces together so you can see what that would look like. Martinez versus Harrison, comma, 234 Southwest 2nd, 367, 368, 69, TX period space 2007, close parentheses. This is a lovely Bluebook cite for an imaginary opinion. I can't see anything in this that we need to add or subtract from. So citing the Texas Supreme Court is super easy. I don't know if that's why that court gets cited so often. I don't think so. But from a Bluebooking standpoint, it's a dream to do. So I wanted to show you the easy example before we get into the hard ones. I'm going to go back to our PowerPoint. Okay. So you can see as we're doing our actually before we do that, let me go back here. You can see I have the backwards paragraph sign indicated here. Let me show you how I find that. Okay, so I'm just hanging out here. I want to find the backwards paragraph sign. I go to the home button, which is right to the right of the file button. I click on the home button, and then I see that they have a few different sections. They have something called the clipboard section, there's something called the font section, there's something called the paragraph section. Then we come up here and we see where the backwards P is. If I have that activated, which I do now, you'll see all of the paragraph returns, all of the tabs, all of this period spacing, and other formatting things. If I hit that button, make it go away, it goes away. I'm going to tell you a little bit of trivia. I Googled what the name of this little guy is, and it's called a pilcrow. So there you have your added vocabulary. I didn't know it, and my guess is you perhaps did not know that, and now we both know it. This is how it's spelled, and it's pronounced just the way it looks. Pill, just like you swallow a pill, and crow, just like the bird. So anyway, I will try to start using the term pilcrow for it, so it'll start sticking in our memory instead of calling it the very sophisticated backwards P term. I'm a little embarrassed about that now. But anyway, let's move on. So those are the 4 parts of the Blue Book that we've talked about. And I've said these, 50 different times, so you're probably a little bit tired of it. There is a 5th field, though, and that is the writ history or the petition history field. We're not even doing that now. I'm just introducing the concept that there is a 5th field that we have to sometimes worry about. But again, other than saying we sometimes have to worry about it, we're not going to do anything with it today. Okay, so now let's go back to our PowerPoint. So we have done the where, we've named our case correctly. We've done, we've done the what, we've named our case correctly. We've done the where, we've decided where the case is located and noted that. We've added the space right here. And now we're going to do open parentheses. And in this case, we're going, or what we've done here is we've done the TEX. Now, we aren't going to, we're going to capitalize the T. We're not going to capitalize the E or the X. So it would be wrong for me to just spell out all of Texas. Not going to work. It would be wrong of me to capitalize all the letters of Texas. No, we do lowercase e, lowercase x. It would also be wrong to do this, use the postal abbreviation, or this. We're going to do TX period. If you're a more mature person, such as myself, you may remember the good old days where we had different postal abbreviations. I think maybe in the 70s or early 80s, I'm not sure the exact date, the Postal Service went to 2-letter abbreviations for all states. And those 2 letters would be capitalized and there would be no period at the end of them. Prior to that, we had a whole different system of postal abbreviations, and this was Texas's postal abbreviation back in the day. Nowadays, of course, it's TX, but if you happen to remember the old postal abbreviations, they usually track with what we're going to do from the perspective of Bluebook. Of course, you don't have to remember those, and I only remember them for a few states, so you would want to look up the state abbreviations to find it. And let's see if I can actually find that in the Bluebook. I'm not going to expect that you know of state abbreviations other than Texas. Yeah, so I'm looking at in the 20th edition, it is on page 502 and 503, the various abbreviations. You will see that Alaska has no abbreviation. You write out the whole word. That's also true for Idaho, Iowa, Ohio, Utah are the ones you don't abbreviate at all. You can see if it's a 2-word name, then it's going to actually be 2 abbreviations. Sometimes with a period, sometimes without a period. So if it's a 2-letter abbreviation like New Jersey, N period, J period, there's no space between the N and the J other than that period. But if you're doing West Virginia, since Virginia is a 2-letter abbreviation, there is a space there. And I'm guessing the same would be true for, actually North Carolina doesn't. Maybe that's the only state that has, yeah, I guess it's the only state that has, that is a 2-letter abbreviation that where the second group is actually 2 letters. So you would put a space between the West, the W period space VA. But you probably won't be citing West Virginia law very often, and I'm not expecting you to know that for our purposes. Okay, so that is how we do the Texas Supreme Court. Let's see how we would do other states. We're going to skip these 2 right now, and we're going to go and look at the Northern District of Texas. And that's going to be N period D period space TEX. So there is a space here. I'm going to copy this. And you can see the format, N period, D period, space, TEX. So really, in a particular state, we usually see printed opinions coming out of 4 different places. The Supreme Court for the state, so I just showed you that. The Appellate Court from the state, which I haven't showed you yet. That's what's tricky in Texas. And then we have the trial court in the federal system. That's this one. And then we have the appellate court in the federal system. And that's also tricky. The easy ones are, let me just write this out. So this is the trial court in the federal system. And this, of course, is the Supreme Court in the state system. Those are the easy ones. The ones that are harder are going to be the appellate court in the state system and the appellate court in the federal system. But these are the 4 that you use like all the time. These you just have to know these. And so 2 of them are easy and 2 are difficult. So the easy ones again are just capital N for Northern District. And of course, in Texas, or excuse me, in Collin County, we would use the Eastern District of Texas. So this, if we're in Dallas County, it's going to be, so this would be Dallas County, N period, D period, space, TEX period, space. So this would be Dallas County, not just Dallas County, but Dallas County would be part of it. Then if we're doing Collin County, it would be here. The Dallas County and Collin County would not be part of the site. So let me just make these normal so you can see. The only part of the site is this stuff right here, the stuff in bold. Okay, so we've done TEX, the Supreme Court, and we've done the federal trial courts. So now we're going to work on the appellate court in the state system. For example, in Texas, Collin County is in the 5th Court of Appeals, which is based in Dallas. So in our appellate system in Texas, the appellate court has 2 names. It has a number. For example, ours is 5th. And it has a city, which is, in our case, Dallas. You will see people refer to both. We'll call it the Dallas Court of Appeals or the 5th Court of Appeals. For Bluebooking purposes, though, we just care about the city. We're not going to do anything with numbers. I'm not sure why we do it that way. My guess is that we do it that way because it could be confusing because the federal system is all about the numbers. So if we're talking about the appellate system, the federal appellate system, it just has a number, like 5th. That's my best guess, but for whatever reason, we just use the number. So that might be the way that you keep it straight. There is no number associated, for example, with the 5th Court of Appeals. You will see the 5th Court of Appeals has several different courthouses. The main one, the kind of the head of it, is in New Orleans. But Dallas has a 5th Court of Appeal. Houston has a 5th Court of Appeal. So they're located in other places. So obviously they're physically located somewhere. You can't exist without having a physical location. But almost no one would ever refer to the 5th Court of Appeals by anything other than the number. It's not associated with a particular geography. But Texas Courts of Appeal, again, is very common to refer them by the city, and for Bluebooking purposes, you have to refer to it by a city. Okay, so we're going to focus on this one first, how to get this right. I have some instructions here. We're going to actually go through them. Just add a few more spaces here so we have a little bit of area to work with. So here is a 7-point system. So this is how we want it to look when we're done. We'll do text, period. So this looks just like what we do for the Texas Supreme Court. Then we're going to have a space. Then we're going to capitalize APP, period. That stands for appellate. Then we're going to have an M dash. I'm saying M as in Michael, M dash. An M dash, this is how people write it, is longer than an N dash. The way I remember it is the letter M is longer than the letter N because there's the extra hump in it. So this is an M dash versus an N dash. And then we have the city that has the court. So this is where we're going to put Dallas. This is how it should look when we're done. Let's see how we get to that point. So the first thing is you're just going to type text app as you ordinarily would. So let me just type it, text app. Okay. Then I'm going to hit the space bar. Then I'm going to twice type the unshifted key to the right of the 0 key on my keyboard. 0 key is obviously on the first row. I'm not shifting, so now I'm just going to type that key. It's a little dash, little hyphen. I'm going to hit it again. I have 2 hyphens next to each other. Now I'm going to hit the space bar. And now I'm going to type in the city that I want. Again, not the number, I just type it normally. We don't abbreviate the city in any way. Okay, and now this is so cool, I love this. I'm going to hit the space bar. Hold on to your hats, it's pretty thrilling what happens here. Look, those 2 N dashes got married and became an M dash together. Okay, that's my little metaphor for that. Now we have to go back and remove these periods. That's why it's so important to have the Pilcrow turned on. And so we have it exactly correctly formatted. Let me show you some things that can go wrong. If I were to have forgotten to do the periods and just did my dashes like this, you get a super long dash. We don't want that super long dash. There's a name for it, but I don't know the name for it, so I'm not going to pretend I do. So you do need to have those spaces, dash, dash, N dash, N dash, space, Dallas. Now we have a space, and go ahead and remove those. Is there another way to do an M dash? Absolutely. You are welcome to do the other way if you want to. It's actually easier, but it requires that you remember kind of some things that are a little tricky to remember. So if you look at this going, hey, I know Word like the back of my hand, I know how to do that. I don't have to do that stupid little extra step. I completely respect that, and you should go about it and do it the way that you know to do it. But this is the easiest way, at least, to retain it for long-term memory purposes. Now let's say that you are using some other word processing system. Well, first of all, don't just use Word when you're doing legal documents. There are a handful of firms who still use WordPerfect, and so if you are in one of those firms, you may be asked to do WordPerfect, but most firms nowadays use Word. If you're using a different software tool, you'll have to learn how to use the M dash and figure out how to do it. In most cases, you can Google it and figure it out. But for this class, for our purposes, you're going to be using Word. Sometimes people are like, well, how do I get Word? Well, you don't have to get anything. You already have it. Office 365. You can do everything that I'm saying here from the comfort of your own home. So use that instead of using any other approach. You'll need to use Word because I'll need to see the formatting. And I don't have access to anything other than Word. And so if you send it to me in a different format, I'm not going to be able to see it. if you see, I mean, I could see a PDF, but when you do a PDF, it's not possible for me to go back and see exactly how you formatted it. So you do need to complete assignments in Microsoft Word. Okay? If you have some problem with that and you need some help figuring out how to access it, come to my office hours and I'll be glad to help you with you mastering that. Okay, so now we've learned how to do this now. So we can kind of check off this. Let me just cross it out because we've covered it. And we've covered this. And we've covered this one. So now we are on the appellate court in the federal system. And we have some instructions for that too. So the problem that we have with the Fifth Court of Appeals is the problem of superscripting. Superscripting is a problem with is a problem that we see particularly with dates and with Bluebook citations. So if I were to do May 17th, I hit the space bar. I didn't want it to superscript, and that's what superscripting is, when the letters become really small up here on the top. Word thinks I want to superscript there. I don't know why. I have no explanation as to why Word would think I would want to do that, because we don't do that in the law. It looks, you know, bad. And so we want to avoid that. Clearly, there are several ways of avoiding it in Word. You can set up your Word account so it doesn't superscript. If you do that, what I'm about to present to you, you don't need to worry about. The reason I don't show you how to turn that off is that there's different versions of Word out there and there's different ways of turning it off. So I'm not going to show you how to do that, but what I'm going to show you is how to avoid superscripting when it comes up. So we don't ever want to superscript. When we're doing dates or anything else, it's a no-no in the legal area. For this purposes, it's not attractive, but it's not awful. For Bluebooking, it's pretty much mortal sin, so to speak. And so so let me just show you what we might be thinking. We might have let's say go with Fifth Circuit. Again, it's going to superscript. The thing about this is it's super obvious that it superscripts. And so, some of the things like whether you've italicized a comma or not, you can get away with because you're really having to be pretty darn picky if you're looking at the comma. But this is not at all subtle. I mean, everybody's going to see, oops, you allowed it to superscript. And so it's kind of a big deal that we avoid that. Actually, I got some of these instructions now that I'm thinking about it out of order. Let's see here. I didn't mean to do that. Let me get this back in shape. Okay, here we go. Sorry about that. Because it should be Fifth Circuit. So this is how we want it to look. Fifth Circuit. And so how do we avoid the superscripting? Well, here is the way. We're going to again turn on that Pilcrow that we learned about right here. And that's going to help us. I mean, it's helpful to have the Pilcrow on for this too, but you can probably do it without doing the Pilcrow. But this one, you probably are going to want it to have the Pilcrow turned on. Okay, so we're going to type the digit of the court. Doesn't matter the one. We're going to do the 11th circuit this time. So I'm just going to type 1-1. And then I'm going to hit the spacebar several times. You only technically need to do it like twice, but I just typically do it several times. And then I'm just going to type circuit. And now I'm going to return to the spot next to my last digit here. And of course, if it were the 11th, it would be TH. Because I'm not going to hit the space bar right after, there's not going to be any superscripting. So now all I have to do is just get rid of the extra spaces, and it works. So if I had tried to type this normally, I'd type 11TH. It's going to superscript as soon as I hit the space bar. So really what I'm doing is I figured out a way to avoid hitting the space bar right after I type that. So the way I do it is I just cheat, do a lot of space bars, do CIR period, now type the TH. I already have the spaces added, so I'm able to trick Word into not superscripting. So that's how we do that. You may want to practice those a little bit so you're familiar with them. Again, if you have any questions or having some difficulty setting that up, come see me during my office hours and I will be glad to show you how to do it and work with you on that. So we've covered the 4 courts that we're mainly going to be dealing with. Let's go to the next slide. And so after we have done this, now at this point we have answered not just the what, not just the where, not just the who, or we've answered the who now. Now we're ready for our last category, which is the when. Fortunately, this one's super easy. So after we have our court, whichever one of these courts it is, because I can cross this one out as we do this, whichever the court is, now we're ready to add the year. So we're going to hit the space bar, because we already have a space here, already have a space here. So we're going to space it. Now we're just going to add the year. And all we have to do here is add just the 4-digit number. We aren't going to worry about this right now. And now we're going to close the parentheses. So let's just go through and do one in both of our difficult courts. So we're going to go back to Martinez versus Harrison, and we're going to pretend this is not the Texas Supreme Court, but we'll say it's the Dallas Court of Appeals. So we're going to have a space after our pinpoint cite. We're going to open parentheses. I'm going to do TX space APP period space N dash space, and then I'm going to say Dallas. When I hit the space, it will change the N dash to an M dash. I get rid of these spaces here. I already had a space added here, so now I just have to add the year. I'm going to say it's 2010 and close the parentheses. Now, this is everything we've learned so far about how to do this particular cite. It's not done. There's another thing we need in it that will be something we cover when we covered the Greenbook. But it's gotten us to, as far as we've learned, this is correct. Now we're going to do one for the Northern District of Texas. So we've done the Texas Supreme Court one. We've done, so we'll just do check here. We've done the Appellate Court, check, and now we're going to do as if it were in the federal trial court. So I'm going to keep our parties the same. Obviously, we know that if it's in the federal court system, it can't be in the Southwestern Reporter. if it's in the trial court, federal trial court, we know it's going to be a Fed sup. So I'm going to say 402 F period space sup period space. I'll say it starts on page 4. Well, actually, we can use the same page numbers. Italicize Martinez versus Harrison. Again, I could be underlining all of these. The important thing is that whatever you choose to do, you do consistently. So now I have finished my pinpoint cite. I'm going to get rid of the bold just so no one can get confused. We do not bold Bluebook cites. I suppose if you were bolding that material for other reasons, you could bold the Bluebook cite, but that would be unusual. And now I'm going to put N capital period, D capital period, space, TEX period, space, 2010. And so this is a complete citation out of the Northern District of Texas. Again, if we were in Sherman or whatever, it'd be the Eastern District of Texas. If we were in Austin, El Paso will say it's the Western District of Texas. If we were in Houston, it'd be the Southern District of Texas. This isn't hard to do. It's just important to remember where we put spaces and where we don't. You can see there are no spaces here through the D. Then we do have a space between the period after the D and text. Again, the way I think of it is text is more than a one-letter abbreviation, and that's why we have the space. And that is the same reason that we have here. SUP is obviously more than one letter, so we need to have a space here. And that's why we don't have spaces with this long one here. Okay. We probably aren't, well, we'll just stay with this one. Okay, so we have now done this one. And this one is complete. This one, as I say, isn't fully complete. There's one thing we haven't learned how to do yet. Now we're going to do this as if this were an appellate court. So I'm going to, right there. So again, we're going to go with Martinez versus Harrison. And we're going to make this 402 Fed. We're going to go with Fed second, the Federal Reporter second. 369, 368, 69. So again, this is just one letter for the Federal Reporter, so there is no space. So this is much more similar to the Southwestern Reporter. Fed sup is just kind of odd, to be honest with you. So then we're going to hit space again, and now we're going to open parentheses. We need the court. We've decided this is out of the Fifth Circuit, so I'm going to hit 5, space, 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 circuit, period. I'm just going to go ahead and add the year and close the parentheses. Then I'm going to go back and do TH and get rid of the extra spaces. And I'm done. And this is also a complete cite. Let me show you that it works for some other ones other than ones that have a TH. We'll do the First Court of Appeals. So I would do 1, space, 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 circuit, 2010, and then I'm going to do ST. One thing to remember is there is no period after the ST, and we can do this if we're doing out of the Second Court of Appeals. The same pattern works. 2, space, 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 circuit, period, 2010, ND. And here we actually do use ND. And a lot of times we've had second edition or third edition, and we've used D instead of ND, but here we'll actually use ND. And if we were doing the third, 3, space, 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 circuit, period, 2010, we do RD, not just the D, and get rid of the extra spaces. So hopefully this has been helpful. We will, next when we're together, we will work on the Greenbook writ and petition history. So thank you for your attention. We will also be going through lots of examples. I wanted to get all the material, the content out of the way, and then work on examples. So more examples will be coming, and those will likely answer many of your questions, but don't wait until then, because I will be glad to answer questions whenever you have them. Thank you for your attention and have a wonderful day.